Commander Sarah Chen walked down the long metal hallway of Council Station Nexus. Her boots made soft sounds on the floor. The walls around her were covered with symbols from dozens of alien races. But none of those symbols were human. Sarah had been working on this station for 5 years. Every day was the same. She would wake up, put on her blue diplomatic uniform, and go to meetings where nobody listened to her. The other species treated humans like children who needed to be watched. The station was huge. It floated in space between 3 star systems. Millions of beings lived and worked here, but humans only had a small section on level 42. It was far from the important areas where real decisions were made. Today, Sarah was going to another meeting. The Galactic Council was talking about trade routes again. They would spend hours discussing which species could use which space lanes. Humans would get the leftover routes that nobody else wanted. She entered the council chamber. The room was circular with a high ceiling. In the center was a large table that could change shape for different meetings. Around the edges were seats for each species. The human section had only 3 chairs. Most other species had dozens. Zephyr Prime was already there. He was the leader of the Zephyrians. His body was made of living crystal that changed colors when he talked. Right now he was a cold blue color. That meant he was annoyed about something. "Ah, the humans arrived," Zephyr Prime said. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "How nice of you to join us." Sarah sat down in her chair. Next to her were the other 2 human representatives. David Park was the trade specialist. Maria Santos handled cultural affairs. They both looked tired. Sarah knew why. Every day they fought small battles that they always lost. The meeting started. First, the ethereals spoke about energy distribution. They were beings made of pure energy, who lived for thousands of years. They talked in riddles that took forever to understand. Then the Kalari discussed mining rights. They were a hive mind species that thought together as one. When they spoke, hundreds of voices said the same words at the same time. When it was Sarah's turn to speak, she stood up. "Earth would like to request patrol duties in the Centauri sector," she said. "Our ships are already in that area for escort missions." Zephyr Prime's crystal body turned red. "The Centauri sector requires experienced forces," he said. "Human ships are better suited for simple tasks." "What kind of simple tasks?" Sarah asked. "Garbage collection from the Outer Rim colonies," said High Nest Mother Clicks. She was the Kalari representative. Her voice was like 100 people whispering at once. "Your species shows great skill at cleaning up waste." Sarah felt her face get hot, but she kept her voice calm. "Humans have successfully handled 3 major crises in the past 10 years, she said. The Vega Station rescue, the asteroid mining disaster at Tau Ceti, and the plague outbreak on Kepler 442b. "Yes, you are good at cleaning up messes," Zephyr Prime said. The other council members made sounds that might have been laughter. "But creating policy requires wisdom that comes with age. Your species is barely 2 centuries old in galactic terms." David Park spoke up. "Our scientists have made important discoveries in faster-than-light travel and energy shields. Discoveries that we have helped you make," said Ethereal 7. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You are students learning from teachers. Students do not make the same decisions as teachers." The meeting went on for 3 more hours. Humans were assigned to escort grain shipments to outer colonies. They would also help with cultural exchange programs. Sarah knew these programs were just ways for other species to spy on human colonies. When the meeting ended, Sarah walked back to the human quarters. The hallway felt longer than usual. She passed groups of alien beings talking in their own languages. None of them looked at her. In her office, Sarah sat at her desk and looked at reports from human colonies. 23 worlds with over 50 million people total, all of them growing food or mining basic materials for other species. Earth itself was treated like a nature preserve that the council sometimes visited. She opened a file marked New Geneva Colony. It was one of the newer human settlements. 2.3 million people lived there. They grew crops and raised animals. The planet had beautiful mountains and clean rivers. It was peaceful and quiet. But something in the report caught her attention. The colony had found old ruins while expanding their farms. The ruins were from an ancient civilization. When they reported this to the council, they were told to stop digging and focus on farming. Sarah found this strange. Usually the council loved studying old civilizations. They had entire departments dedicated to archaeology. Why would they tell the colonists to stop looking at the ruins? She pulled up more files. 3 other human colonies had found similar ruins in the past year. All of them were told to stop investigating and focus on their assigned work. Sarah's computer beeped. She had received a message. It was coded, which was unusual. When she decoded it, the message was short. They watch everything. Be careful what you say. Some of us remember what we used to be. The message had no sender information. Sarah stared at it for a long time. What did it mean? What did humans used to be? She thought about human history before joining the Galactic Council. Humans had been explorers and fighters. They had built amazing cities and powerful weapons. They had reached for the stars with nothing but determination and courage. But when the Council found Earth, everything changed. Humans were told they were too young and too dangerous to be trusted with advanced technology. They had to give up their weapons and accept Council protection. In return, they got safe planets to live on and simple work to do. For 2 centuries, humans had accepted this arrangement. They had been grateful to be part of something bigger. They had followed the rules and stayed quiet. But Sarah was starting to wonder if following the rules was the right thing to do. She looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Somewhere else was New Geneva, where people were living peaceful lives and growing food for alien species who thought humans were only good for simple tasks. Sarah made a decision. She was going to find out more about these ruins. She was going to learn what the other species didn't want humans to know, and she was going to remember what humans used to be before they learned to be quiet and obedient. She started typing a message to her contacts on various human colonies. She used a code that she hoped the Council's computers wouldn't understand. The message was simple. Send me everything you can about the old ruins. Don't use official channels. As she sent the message, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt like she was doing something important instead of just following orders. She felt like she was being human again. Outside her window, the stars looked different somehow. They looked like destinations instead of just pretty lights. And for the first time in a long time, Sarah smiled. Sarah was eating breakfast in her quarters when the emergency alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed in the hallway. The station's computer voice spoke in a dozen different languages. Priority distress signal received. All council members, report to emergency chamber immediately. Sarah ran through the corridors. Other beings were moving quickly too. The Zephyrians floated on energy fields. The Kalari moved like a single flowing creature. Everyone looked worried. The emergency chamber was already full when Sarah arrived. The big screen at the front showed static and interference. Then a human voice came through, weak and full of fear. This is New Geneva Colony calling for immediate help. We are under attack. Unknown ships are firing on our cities. They have some kind of energy weapons that cut through our shields like they're not even there. We have millions of civilians here. We need military support right now. Please, someone help us! The voice was cut off by the sound of explosions. Then the transmission went dead. Sarah stood up. We need to send ships immediately, she said. New Geneva has over 2 million civilians. They have no military defenses. Zephyr Prime's crystal body was a calm green color. The Council must discuss this situation carefully, he said. We cannot make quick decisions about military action. There's nothing to discuss, Sarah said. Her voice was getting louder. People are dying right now. We have a fleet of Council ships less than 2 hours away from that system. The Council will debate and vote, said Highness Mother Clicks. Her 100 voices spoke as one. This is proper procedure. Sarah watched in horror as the Council spent the next 6 hours talking. They discussed who might be attacking the colony. They argued about whether it was worth sending ships to help. They talked about the cost of military action and the political complications. Every few minutes, Sarah tried to speak up. Each time, she was told to wait for her turn, or reminded that humans were junior members who should listen more than talk. Finally, Zephyr Prime called for a vote. The result was announced with no emotion in his voice. The Council has decided that New Geneva Colony is not strategically important enough to risk Council military forces. The attack appears to be from unknown raiders operating outside Council space. We cannot waste valuable ships on what may be a trap. Sarah felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. You're abandoning them? She asked. We are making a practical decision, Ethereal 7 said. Some losses are acceptable when weighed against greater good. Sarah ran back to her quarters. She tried to contact New Geneva Colony herself. All she got was silence. The communication satellites around the planet were no longer working. For the next 3 days, Sarah sent message after message trying to reach the colony. Nothing came back. The council posted an official report saying that New Geneva had been lost to unknown raiders, and that the colonists should be remembered for their sacrifice. But Sarah couldn't let it go. She had friends on New Geneva, good people who had built farms and schools and homes. They deserved better than being called an acceptable loss. She used her security access to look at the council's military tracking data. What she found made her feel sick. On the day of the attack, 3 Kalari battle cruisers had been in the area around New Geneva. Their official mission was listed as Deep Space Patrol, but the tracking data showed they had been moving toward the colony, not patrolling randomly. There was more. Energy weapon signatures detected during the attack matched Zephyrian military technology. The same technology that the Council claimed was too advanced for anyone outside their alliance to have. Sarah kept digging through the data. She found encrypted communications between Kalari and Zephyrian military commanders. It took her 2 days to break the code, but when she did, the truth was worse than she had imagined. The attack on New Geneva wasn't random. It was planned by the Council itself. The colonists had found ruins that contained information the Council wanted to keep secret. When the humans wouldn't stop investigating, the Council decided to eliminate the problem. The entire colony was destroyed to keep them quiet about what they had found. The encrypted messages talked about teaching the humans their place and making sure junior species understand the cost of asking too many questions. Sarah printed out all the evidence. Her hands were shaking as she put together the files. Over 2 million people had been murdered. Not by unknown raiders, but by the very species that humans trusted to protect them. She called for an emergency council meeting. When the members assembled, Sarah stood up and presented her evidence. She showed them the tracking data, the weapon signatures, and the decoded messages. New Geneva wasn't attacked by raiders, she said. It was attacked by council forces. You killed over 2 million innocent people because they found something you wanted to keep hidden. Zephyr Prime looked at the evidence for exactly 30 seconds. Then his crystal body turned bright red. This data has clearly been fabricated, he said. Humans are known for their emotional instability and tendency toward conspiracy theories. The weapon signatures are perfect matches, Sarah said. The tracking data comes from your own military systems. Data can be altered, Highness Mother Click said. Humans have shown skill at computer manipulation in the past. The coding on these messages uses official council encryption, Sarah insisted. I can prove they're real. Ethereal 7 floated forward. Its energy field was bright and angry. Even if this data were real, which it is not, the council must sometimes make difficult decisions for the greater good. Junior species cannot understand the complexities of galactic politics. You murdered them, Sarah said. She was shouting now. You murdered them because they found ruins you didn't want them to see. What was so important that you killed millions of people? Zephyr Prime stood up. His crystal body was now so red it hurt to look at. Commander Chen, you are clearly suffering from emotional breakdown. You are hereby stripped of your diplomatic position and confined to quarters. The human delegation will be reduced to 2 members. Furthermore, Highness Mother Clicks added, the human government will pay reparations to the Kalari military for these false accusations. 1 billion credits should cover the damage to their reputation. Sarah was escorted from the chamber by council security. As the doors closed behind her, she heard Ethereal 7 speaking to the remaining council members. Perhaps it is time to remind the humans more directly about their proper place in galactic society. In her quarters, Sarah sat on her bed and stared at the wall. Everything she had believed about the council was a lie. They weren't protectors or teachers or wise leaders. They were killers who saw humans as tools to be used and thrown away. But, as she sat there, Sarah felt something growing inside her chest. It wasn't sadness or fear. It was something harder and hotter. It was rage. The Council had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They had shown humans what they really thought of them. And now humans would show the Council what they had forgotten during 2 centuries of peaceful cooperation. Sarah activated her personal communicator and sent a coded message to Earth. The message was short. They killed New Geneva. Time to remember what we are. The news spread through human space like fire through dry grass. Within hours of Sarah's message reaching Earth, every human colony, every human ship, and every human outpost knew the truth about New Geneva. Admiral Marcus Rivera was in his office, on Mars Naval Base when he received the official orders from Earth Command. He read them twice to make sure he understood correctly. Then he smiled for the first time in months. "Lieutenant Palmer," he called to his aide. "Send message to all fleet commanders. Operation Awakening is now active. All ships are to report for immediate deployment." Lieutenant Palmer looked confused. "Sir, I don't have Operation Awakening in any of our databases." "Check the sealed archives," Rivera said. "Authorization code. Remember Terra 1. Palmer's fingers moved quickly across his computer. His face went pale as he read what appeared on his screen. "Sir, these are military assault plans, but we only have exploration and escort vessels." Rivera's smile got wider. "Son, do you really think we've been building exploration ships for 200 years? Across human space, the transformation began. On colony worlds that the Council thought were just farms, hidden doors opened in the ground. Weapon systems that had been disguised as irrigation equipment rose up toward the sky. Silos that supposedly stored grain revealed their true contents. Missiles capable of destroying entire fleets. Dr. Elena Vasquez was on the Human Research Station orbiting Jupiter when she received her new orders. For 20 years, she had been studying ancient alien civilizations for the Council. Now she was being told to focus on one specific site, the ruins on New Geneva. But New Geneva was gone. The entire planet had been glassed by energy weapons. How could she study ruins on a dead world? The answer came in a coded message from Earth Intelligence. Backup data from New Geneva excavation stored in secure archives. Priority access granted. Find out what they died to protect. Elena worked for 3 days straight. The colonists on New Geneva had been very thorough in their archaeological work. They had scanned every inch of the ruins and cataloged thousands of artifacts before the Council told them to stop. What Elena found in their data made her hands shake. The ruins weren't just from any ancient civilization. They were from the Void Walkers, a legendary race that had controlled the entire galaxy millions of years ago. According to galactic history, the Void Walkers had vanished mysteriously, leaving behind only stories and legends. But the data from New Geneva showed something impossible. The Void Walker ruins contained DNA samples. When Elena ran the genetic analysis, she almost couldn't believe the results. The Void Walker DNA was a perfect match for modern human DNA. Humans weren't just another young species that had recently discovered space travel. They were the descendants of the most powerful warrior race in galactic history, the species that had once made the Zephyrians and Kalari bow in submission. Elena immediately sent her findings to Earth Command and Admiral Rivera. Within hours, the information was being shared with every human military unit in the galaxy. On Earth, the deep archives were opened for the first time in 2 centuries. Weapons that had been decommissioned when humans joined the Council were brought back. Online, the genetic warrior program suspended to show the Council that humans were peaceful was reactivated. Admiral Rivera stood in the main hangar of Mars Naval Base and watched as his ships prepared for launch. To anyone from the Council, they would look like the same escort vessels and exploration craft that humans had been flying for decades, but appearances were very deceiving. Captain Lisa Wong stood on the bridge of the UES Determination. To outside observers, her ship was a simple exploration vessel with light weapons and scientific equipment. The Council had inspected it personally when it was built. What the Council didn't know was that every exploration ship had been built with hidden capabilities. The Determination's scientific sensors were actually military targeting systems. Its exploration drones were armed with weapons that could cut through any known shield technology. Its cultural database contained detailed information about the weaknesses of every Council species. "Captain," her weapons officer called out, "all systems are online and ready." "What's our current classification with Council traffic control?" Wong asked. "We're listed as Cultural Exchange Vessel 347 on a routine diplomatic mission." Wong nodded. "Maintain that classification until further orders. How many ships are in our task force?" 847 vessels, ma'am, all showing as various civilian and diplomatic craft. "Good. The Council always said humans were best suited for simple escort duties. Let's show them how good we've gotten at it." Meanwhile, on human colonies throughout the galaxy, a different kind of awakening was happening. People who had spent their lives farming and mining and building were remembering skills they thought they had forgotten. Michael Torres had been a farmer on Kepler Station for 30 years. He grew vegetables and raised livestock. The Council considered him a useful but harmless agricultural specialist. When Michael received his activation message, memories came flooding back. Not his own memories, but genetic memories passed down through generations of human warriors. He remembered how to fight, how to plan battles, and how to turn farming equipment into weapons. Within hours, Michael had organized his fellow farmers into a military unit. Their tractors became mobile weapon platforms. Their harvesters became troop transports. Their irrigation systems became communication networks that the council couldn't monitor. The same thing was happening on every human world. Teachers became intelligence officers, miners became demolition experts, scientists became weapons designers. But the council noticed none of this. As far as they could tell, humans were still quietly doing their assigned jobs, still farming and mining and building things for their betters. Admiral Rivera reviewed the reports coming in from across human space. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Plans that had been made 200 years ago, when humans first joined the council. The council had always wondered why humans adapted so quickly to galactic civilization. They had assumed it was because humans were naturally obedient and grateful for guidance. They were wrong. Humans had adapted quickly because they were natural survivors, and survivors always had backup plans. For 2 centuries, humans had been learning everything they could about council technology, council tactics, and council weaknesses. They had been building weapons and ships and systems that looked harmless, but were actually more advanced than anything the council possessed. They had been waiting. Sarah Chen was still confined to quarters on Council Station Nexus when she received a coded message on her personal communicator. The message was from Admiral Rivera and it was simple. Package delivery scheduled for tomorrow. Please prepare to receive goods. Sarah smiled. She knew what that meant. She spent the evening sending messages to human agents throughout the station. People the council thought were janitors and technicians and clerks. People who had been watching and listening and waiting for this moment. By morning, every critical system on the station would be under human control. The council would wake up to find that their mighty fortress was actually a prison, and the prisoners were now the guards. As Sarah settled down to sleep, she thought about New Geneva. Over 2 million people had died because they discovered the truth about humanity's past. Soon the entire galaxy would discover the truth about humanity's present, and the council would learn why their ancestors had nightmares about the Voidwalkers. The first sign something was wrong came when Council Station Nexus lost contact with 3 of its outer sensor platforms. The platforms simply stopped sending data with no warning or distress signal. High Nest Mother Clicks was in the central command center when the alert started flashing. Investigate the sensor failure, she ordered her technicians, and increase scanning range around the station. What the scanners found made every being in the command center go silent. Ships were appearing out of hyperspace. Not just a few ships, but hundreds of them. They came from all directions, surrounding the station like a net closing around a fish. But according to council records, these were human civilian vessels, exploration ships, cultural exchange vessels, and escort craft. Nothing that should worry a station protected by the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. Zephyr Prime arrived in the command center just as the human fleet finished positioning itself around the station. His crystal body was flashing between colors, unable to settle on one emotion. How many human ships? He demanded. 847 confirmed, reported a Zephyrian technician. All showing as non-military vessels in our databases. Then why do I feel like we're surrounded by wolves? Zephyr Prime muttered. The answer came when Sarah Chen appeared, on every screen throughout the station. She was no longer wearing her blue diplomatic uniform. Instead, she wore black clothing with silver insignia that none of the council species recognized. Citizens of Council Station Nexus, Sarah said. Her voice was calm but somehow more frightening than if she had been shouting. I am Commander Sarah Chen of Human Military Intelligence. You are now under the protection of the Terran Defense Force. Protection? Zephyr Prime snarled. We don't need protection from junior species, Sarah continued as if she hadn't heard him. All council military personnel are to report to designated areas for processing. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force. This station is now under human administration until further notice. Zephyr Prime activated the station's defense systems. The most powerful weapons in council space powered up and targeted the human fleet. Let's see how your exploration ships handle real firepower, he said. The station fired. Every weapon system discharged at once, sending enough energy to destroy a small moon toward the human ships. It should have been the end of the human fleet in seconds. Instead, the weapons simply stopped working. Every missile, Every energy beam, every defensive system on the station went dead. The lights flickered and went out. Emergency power kicked in, but even that was limited. What happened? Zephyr Prime demanded. Sir, a technician said, all weapon systems are offline. Our computers show they're functioning normally, but nothing is firing. Sarah's voice came over the communication system again. For the past 5 years, human maintenance personnel have been working on this station. Did you really think we were just fixing air recyclers and cleaning floors? The truth hit Zephyr Prime like a physical blow. Humans had been sabotaging the station from the inside. Every system they had been allowed to maintain, every computer they had been given access to, had been prepared for this moment. On the human flagship UES Determination, Admiral Rivera watched the station's weapons go silent. All ships begin. Boarding operations, he ordered. Remember, we want prisoners, not casualties. We need information. Captain Wong looked at her tactical display. Sir, the station is launching fighter craft. How many? 236 Kalari interceptors and 48 Zephyrian energy fighters. And how many of our ships have fighter capabilities? Wong smiled. All of them, sir. What happened next became known in human military history as the 5-Minute War. The Council fighters launched expecting to face unarmed exploration vessels. Instead, they found themselves fighting ships that moved faster than anything in their databases and fired weapons that cut through their shields like paper. The human ships didn't just defend themselves, they hunted. Every Council fighter was either destroyed or disabled within 5 minutes. Not a single human ship took damage. Admiral Rivera opened a channel to the station. Council Station Nexus, this is Admiral Rivera of the Terran Defense Force. Your weapons are offline, and your fighters are destroyed. Surrender now and no one else needs to get hurt. Zephyr Prime's response was to activate the station's ultimate weapon, the Nexus core itself. The entire station was built around a controlled stellar collapse engine. It could destroy entire star systems if properly directed. If we're going to die, we're taking you with us, Zephyr Prime announced. The Nexus core began to charge. Energy readings throughout the station climbed to dangerous levels. In 30 seconds, the core would fire and destroy everything within a light year, but after 20 seconds, the charging stopped. The core powered down and went completely offline. Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared on the station's communication screens. She was standing in what looked like the station's core chamber. Did you really think we wouldn't have prepared for this? She asked. She held up a small device. This is a quantum inhibitor. We installed them throughout your precious weapon 6 months ago. Your ultimate weapon is now about as dangerous as a flashlight. Zephyr Prime's crystal body turned completely black. In Zephyrian culture, black meant defeat and despair. Human Marines began boarding the station at docking ports throughout the structure. They moved through the corridors like they had been planning this operation for years. Because they had. The Marines wore armor that looked simple, but was actually more advanced than anything the Council had ever seen. Their weapons were compact but devastatingly effective. Most importantly, they knew exactly where to go and what to do. Within 2 hours, every critical area of the station was under human control. High Nest Mother Clix found herself face-to-face with a human Marine in the main Council chamber. The human was a young woman who looked barely old enough to fight, but her eyes were hard and cold. You're under arrest for war crimes, the Marine said. Specifically, the massacre of New Geneva Colony. You have no authority here, Clix replied. The Council does not recognize human law. The Marine smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. The Council doesn't exist anymore. As of 2 hours ago, every Council homeworld is under human occupation. Your fleets are destroyed. Your leaders are either dead or in custody. Clix's hundreds of voices spoke in unison. Impossible. The Council has ruled the galaxy for millions of years. The Council ruled the galaxy for millions of years, the Marine corrected. Past tense. Now humans rule the galaxy. And we have very different ideas about justice. In the station's communication center, Sarah Chen was coordinating with human forces throughout the galaxy. The reports coming in were almost too good to believe. The Kalari homeworld had fallen in 6 hours. Their hive mind made them predictable, and humans had been studying their patterns for decades. A coordinated electromagnetic pulse had disrupted their collective consciousness, leaving them helpless. The Zephyrian crystal cities had surrendered without a fight, once they realized that human weapons could shatter their crystalline bodies into dust. The proud energy beings who had ruled dozens of worlds were now refugees begging for mercy. The ethereals had simply vanished. Their energy forms had dissipated when human forces arrived at their dimensional strongholds. Whether they were dead or hiding, no one knew. In 72 hours, the galaxy had changed completely. Species that had dominated star systems for millennia were now under human protection. The council that had ruled with absolute authority for millions of years was gone. Admiral Rivera stood in the ruins of the council chamber and looked at the captured council leaders. Zephyr Prime's crystal body was now a dull gray color. High Nest Mother Clix's voices had been reduced to whispers. The few surviving ethereals flickered weakly. "You wanted to teach us our place," Rivera said. "Consider the lesson learned." 6 months after the fall of the Galactic Council, the galaxy was learning to live under human rule. But it wasn't the kind of rule that anyone had expected. Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of what used to be Council Station Nexus, now renamed Terra Station. Through the massive windows, she could see ships from dozens of species coming and going. Alien beings walked the corridors freely, conducting business and visiting friends. The difference was that now humans were in charge of keeping the peace. Admiral Rivera joined her at the window. His black uniform had been replaced with a simple, gray one. The insignia on his chest showed his new title, Director of Galactic Security. "How are the integration programs going?" Sarah asked. "Better than expected," Rivera replied. "Most species are adapting well to the new system. The Kalari are actually happier now that they can think as individuals. Turns out many of them never liked the hive mind but were too afraid to say anything." Sarah nodded. That had been one of humanity's first changes. The neural virus that broke up the Kalari collective consciousness had been designed to be permanent. Now each Kalari could think their own thoughts and make their own decisions. "What about the Zephyrians?" she asked. Rivera's expression darkened slightly. "They're having a harder time adjusting. For millions of years, they believed they were superior to everyone else. Learning that they're just another species under human protection has been difficult." On the Zephyrian homeworld of Crystal Prime, former council leader Zephyr Prime sat in what had once been his palace. The building was still beautiful, but the crystal walls now displayed human art and literature. Human music played softly in the background. A human administrator named Captain Johnson visited him every day. Johnson was young and polite, but Zephyr Prime could see the steel behind his friendly smile. "How are you feeling today?" Johnson asked. Zephyr Prime's crystal body was a dull blue, the color of resignation. "The same as yesterday, and the day before, and every day since your people conquered us." "We didn't conquer you," Johnson said patiently. "We liberated you. The council system was corrupt and violent. Under human administration, all species are free to develop their own cultures and pursue their own goals. As long as those goals don't conflict with human interests," Zephyr Prime said bitterly. Johnson's smile never wavered. "As long as those goals don't involve murdering millions of innocent people, yes." It was a conversation they had every day. Johnson would explain the benefits of human rule, and Zephyr Prime would complain about losing his power. But both of them knew the truth. The old system was never coming back. In another part of the galaxy, Dr. Elena Vasquez was working on one of the most important projects in human history. She stood in a laboratory on New Geneva 2, the replacement colony built to honor the victims of the original New Geneva. The laboratory was filled with artifacts from Void Walker ruins found throughout human space. Now that humans controlled the galaxy, they could excavate these sites without interference. "Have you figured out why they vanished?" asked her research assistant, Dr. Kim. Elena looked up from the ancient tablet she was translating. "I think so. According to these records, the Void Walkers didn't disappear. They evolved beyond the need for galactic conquest." "Evolved how?" "They learned that true power doesn't come from ruling others. It comes from protecting them." Elena gestured at the tablet. "The Void Walkers realized that a galaxy ruled by fear and force would eventually destroy itself. So they stepped back and let younger species learn to govern themselves. But some of them stayed behind?" Elena nodded. "A small group remained to watch over the galaxy, to intervene only when necessary. They became the ancestors of modern humans." Dr. Kim looked confused. "But humans joined the council peacefully. We didn't conquer anyone." "Exactly," Elena said. "We waited. We watched. We learned everything we could about the species that claimed to rule the galaxy. And when they crossed the line by murdering innocent people, We reminded them why their ancestors used to have nightmares about the void, walkers. On Earth, the human assembly was debating the future of galactic government. The debate had been going on for weeks, and opinions were divided. Some humans wanted to rule the galaxy directly, making all the decisions and controlling all the resources. Others wanted to withdraw from galactic affairs entirely, leaving other species to govern themselves. Assembly Leader Maria Santos stood at the podium and addressed the gathered representatives. "We have a choice to make," she said. "We can become the new council, ruling through fear and force, or we can become something better." "What do you propose?" asked Representative Chen from the Luna colony. "The Terran Protectorate," Santos replied. "A system where humans provide security and guidance, but each species governs itself. We become the guardians of galactic peace, not the rulers of galactic politics." Representative Wilson from Mars raised his hand. "And if species make decisions we don't like? Then we let them make those decisions, as long as they don't harm others. The moment any species tries to commit genocide or enslave another, we step in. But otherwise we let them find their own path." The debate continued for 3 more days. In the end, the Assembly voted to establish the Terran Protectorate. Humans would maintain military bases throughout the galaxy, and would intervene in conflicts when necessary. But day-to-day governance would be left to individual species. Back on Terra Station, Sarah Chen was reading reports from across the galaxy. The news was mostly good. Trade was increasing between species that had barely communicated under the Council. Scientific research was advancing faster now that information was shared freely. Art and culture were flourishing as different species learned from each other, but there were still problems. Some groups were trying to restart old conflicts. A few extremist factions wanted to overthrow human rule and return to the old ways. Pirates and criminals were taking advantage of the transition period to cause trouble. Each problem was dealt with quickly and efficiently. Human rapid response teams could reach any point in the galaxy within hours. Unlike the old council, which would debate for days before taking action, human forces acted immediately when civilians were threatened. Admiral Rivera entered Sarah's office with a message pad in his hand. "We just received this from the former ethereal territories," he said. Sarah read the message and smiled. It was from a group of young ethereals who had formed their own government. They were asking for human protection while they established their new democracy. "Send them a security detachment and a team of advisors," Sarah said, "but make sure the advisors understand they're there to help, not to rule." Rivera nodded and left to make the arrangements. Sarah turned back to the window and looked out at the stars. The galaxy was still learning to live without the Council. There were still species that resented human leadership, and others that didn't trust the new system. But for the first time, in millions of years, the galaxy was truly free. No species was forced to serve others. No one was told they were too young or too primitive to make their own decisions. Everyone had the chance to grow and develop at their own pace. And watching over it all, making sure that freedom was protected, were the humans, the descendants of the Void Walkers, the species that had learned the most important lesson in galactic history. True strength comes not from conquering others, but from protecting them. Sarah's communicator chimed with a message from New Geneva 2. The colonists were sending their monthly report. The new colony was thriving. Children were playing in the same fields where their predecessors had died. Schools and hospitals were being built. The future was bright. At the end of the report was a personal note. "Thank you for remembering us. Thank you for making them pay. And thank you for making sure this never happens again." Sarah wiped a tear from her eye and smiled. The Council had thought they were teaching humans a lesson about their place in the galaxy. They had taught humans a lesson, just not the one they intended. The lesson was simple. Never again would humans trust others to protect the innocent. Never again would they stand by while genocide happened. And never again would they pretend to be weak when they were actually the strongest force in the galaxy. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of the Terran Protectorate had begun, and the galaxy was safe.